Hi, I'm Brian Kellerman, the co-founder and Chief Quality and Food Safety Officer at Kellerman Consulting, and you are watching our series on internal audits. In this episode, we are going to discuss how to properly address non-conformances or opportunities for improvements discovered over the course of an internal audit. This topic was also covered in our video series on corrective actions and preventive actions, but corrective actions and preventive actions as a result of internal audits are a special circumstance and require a special review. In this episode, we are going to look at how to properly record a non-conformance finding, how to schedule a corrective action, and how to follow up on these corrective actions to make sure they remain in place once completed. Let's start by taking a closer look at what a non-conformance is during an internal audit. Throughout a properly conducted audit, the auditor works through the checklist tool or predetermined questions. The answers and records presented in response are either correct for the organizational requirements or they will differ from those requirements. Where answers and records match organizational requirements, these are considered conforming. And when they differ from organizational requirements, they are non-conformances. An example of a conforming finding is when all performed trainings had a sign-in sheet with the names of the participants, the names of the instructor, as well as the topic and the duration of the training. A non-conforming finding would be a form which requires a manager's sign-off, but records on file are blank and do not have the required signature. Another example could be a form that is filled out correctly, but is the wrong version and has instructions that are no longer up to date for operations. This second example is important because although it is a non-conformance, the form is being filled out correctly, and as such is not an error in operations. We can observe that operations were correctly completed, even as the incorrect version of the document was used. A third type of finding is one where the auditor and auditee discover an action that may be inherently correct, but could be performed in a clearer or better way. These we refer to as opportunities for improvement. An example of an opportunity for improvement would be a communication program such as a Slack channel conversation that is found to be insecure due to not requiring a password, or in a food factory, using the word allergen for all incoming allergens instead of stickers for each type of allergen. These are not necessarily errors, but are observations where changes could improve the quality or safety of operations. All findings, conformities, opportunities for improvement, and non-conformances need to be recorded on the audit form. However, with conformities and opportunities for improvement, we only need to record those outcomes and are not required to follow up as part of the internal audit process. With all non-conformances, we must follow up promptly following the completion of the internal audit, and we must also plan and complete corrective actions for those non-conformances to ensure they do not show up the next time we audit that part of operations. A very important distinction to note here is the difference between a correction and a corrective action. A correction is an action that is performed as a result of the audit to eliminate the actual non-conformance in real time. A corrective action is something that happens later to eliminate the root cause of the non-conformance. Going back to the example of the non-conformance we had of a manager's missing signature, the manager could attempt to resolve the non-conformity by signing the document during the audit. While, yes, this will correct the immediate error, this does not eliminate the root cause. The error still requires a follow-up after the audit to make sure the manager does not continue to neglect their requirement to sign forms. The corrective action will need to have training as well as monitoring to verify the closeout of the non-conformance. A corrective action is required for every non-conformance, regardless of whether or not a correction is made during the audit. All corrective actions must have a completion date determined by management and must be signed off following completion within the assigned date. In the end, we need to know who is responsible for the corrective actions following the audit. And that is anyone with the responsibility for the area where the non-conformance was found can be responsible for the corrective action. And employees responsible for quality assurance or safety may sign off on that corrective action once complete. Whether the finding and a record of the correction and corrective action are recorded on the auditing checklist tool or on a separate record is up to the auditor, as long as that information is included with the audit records. Additionally, the internal auditor or internal audit team does not have to be responsible for the corrective action, and in fact may not have anything to do with the corrective action or its follow-up depending on their role in the organization. In all circumstances where a non-conformance occurs during the audit, the finding, the immediate corrective action performed, and the corrective action after the audit must be presented to leadership following every audit. Each internal auditor in a facility should at some point during each audit review previous non-conformances from the last audit to verify that the previous actions taken in response to those corrective actions are still in place. Completed internal audits, carried out according to the scheduled frequency with independent, properly trained staff that utilize an appropriate audit tool or checklist, are a cornerstone of a well-prepared operation. Facilities with a committed team and leadership reviewing the completed audits and following up on documented corrective actions are much more likely to pass government inspections or third-party certification audits. In our next episode, we are going to discuss software solutions for auditing and what to look for if a technological solution is desired. For other episodes on internal auditing and free downloadable tools to help perform an internal audit, as well as other training videos, please visit the Kellerman Consulting website, and please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel or follow us on LinkedIn.